This is a beautiful patch of sphagnum moss. Quite a large family of mosses that are found all over the world in really wet areas. It's a really primitive species. It's one of the first organisms that were able to really take hold of those nutrient poor boggy environments, and they've stuck around. They haven't had to evolve out of their current state. And amongst sphagnum mosses, you often find carnivorous plants like these beautiful Drosera. I mean, just a stunning patch of habitat where there's quite a good diversity of different plants. But yeah, a lot of people are familiar with sphagnum mosses. If you're in the US or Canada or even New Zealand and the UK, you find them in your moors and boggy, swampy places. But here it's in the paperbark swamp. It's quite an unusual habitat in Australia to find, or in Queensland at least, to find sphagnum moss. It's getting increasingly rare, but when you see it in a quantity like this, it's just absolutely beautiful. So this is pretty cool. Without having to get up at all from this spot, I can show you 6 different carnivorous plants all growing within close proximity to each other. Now the most obvious here are these beautiful red ones. This is Drosera spatulata, a really widespread species throughout Australia and Southeast Asia. Little green fella there, that one is Drosera bermanii, another really common species to the same sort of areas. Now if we go over this side, some of these tiny fellas mixed amongst the seedling spatulatas, we've actually got some Drosera pygmaea. Now they're full size, that's as big as those little fellas will get compared to the spatulata. You can see the size. Now in this spot we've also got 3 different bladderworts. So these little purple flowers here, let me get it to focus, that's Utricularia caerulea, the blue bladderwort. And then here we've got an extremely widespread pantropical species. This is gibber. It's found oftentimes in aquariums as a weed. It's actually an aquatic, so it only flowers when it gets washed up here on the bank, but most of the time it spends its time amongst the water lilies there. And the final one, it's actually finished flowering, but these scapes here, they are Utricularia uliginosa, and that's perfect habitat for it. It likes it right along the water's edge. Sometimes grows under the water, most of the time just grows on the bank. But yeah, right here in about a square metre, 6 carnivorous plants. It's a really biodiverse spot. The sphagnum has been widely used in horticulture as a potting medium. It's all protected now, which is why I'm not going to move that clump much further than that. Just to sort of show you the depth of it, it actually goes down quite a way. It's about 1 foot deep here, and it's just the that top surface that stays alive. In the summer months, it'll dry up and go almost completely brown, except for the stuff that's submerged under the water there. But in winter, when there's been a bit more rain and it's a bit cooler, you get these beautiful banks covered in it. It is the building blocks of the swampy, boggy habitats that a lot of us are familiar with. Anyone that's heard of a peat bog or peat moss, that's just broken down sphagnum. And so this is the building blocks of basically a lot of habitats all over the world. It all starts with this, grows and it dies and it forms soil, and that soil is so important to so many different endemic plants that are only found in these peaty, boggy places. Try and take them out of this really acidic, wet, nutrient poor environment, and they just don't grow well. That's why it's often harvested quite unethically around the world. So if you use sphagnum moss at home, make sure that where you're getting it from is ethically sourced, because these habitats are fragile as they are, and we just keep removing basically the founding blocks that make the habitat what they are. If we keep removing the sphagnum, then we're not going to have any sphagnum bogs left.